Human beings are the only creatures that actually have to be educated. After the early life care, keeping them fed, keeping them warm, keeping them alive, and discipline, comes education, which comprises training and character formation. So a human being goes through 3 stages. First a baby, then a student, then a mentee.
Animals can do what they need to do from basically the moment they're born, and they do it without hurting themselves. Take young swallows, for example. They're barely hatched, still blind, and yet they already know how to make sure their waste falls out of the nest, rather than piling up inside it. Nobody taught them that. Nobody had to. That's why animals don't need discipline in the way humans do, just food, warmth, and maybe a little guidance here and there. Discipline, in the real sense, means parents making sure their kids don't hurt themselves with the abilities they have. And animals just don't have that problem, because their abilities come ready calibrated from the start. Think about it. If a newborn animal cried the way a human baby does, it would be picked off immediately by predators following the sound. A human baby, on the other hand, announces itself to the whole neighborhood and can't do a single thing to protect itself.
Training is what first turns raw animal nature into something human. An animal is already everything it's ever going to be the moment it's born. Its programming is already installed and running. But a human being has to figure things out using his own brain. He has no built-in instruction manual and has to work out how to live by himself. The catch, of course, is that he can't do this when he first arrives in the world, because he arrives completely unformed, so other people have to do it for him, at least to start with. The whole human species is supposed to gradually bring out its full potential through its own efforts. This isn't a one-generation job, it takes centuries. Each generation raises the next, passing on not just facts, but habits, values, and hard-won wisdom. You can see the very beginnings of education in either a pretty rough basic form or in something much more developed and polished. If you assume the polished version came first, then at some point things must have gone backwards and people reverted to a more primitive state, which is just another way of saying that if civilization collapses, you have to build it back up from zero. Discipline keeps human beings from sliding back into their animal impulses and missing what they're actually here to become. Without it, people grab what they want, lash out when they don't get it, and charge headfirst into danger. Discipline pulls them back. It's essentially negative in its function, meaning it takes something away rather than adding something. Specifically, it chips away at the tendency toward pure selfishness and impulsiveness. Training, though, is the positive side of education. That's where you actually build something. Barbarism, at its core, is just refusing to answer to any rules or laws outside yourself. A barbarian isn't necessarily violent or dim, he's just someone who thinks his immediate desires are the only authority that matters, which honestly describes most toddlers pretty well. Through discipline, a person gets introduced to the rules of human society and starts to feel what it's like to have those rules apply to them. And this has to happen early. That's actually why we send children to school before they're ready to really learn much. The point, at first, isn't the curriculum, it's getting them used to sitting still, showing up on time and doing what they're told even when they would rather not. Learning to wait, to pay attention, to hold off on acting on every impulse. These turn out to be the building blocks for pretty much everything else. Human beings have an incredibly powerful pull toward freedom built right into them, and once they've had a taste of it, they'll give up almost anything to keep it. Anyone who's ever tried to put a teenager back on a curfew after a summer of total freedom will know exactly what this looks like in practice.
That's precisely why discipline has to be put in place early, because once the habit of doing whatever you want is established, it's genuinely hard to undo. The person just drifts from one impulse to the next with no real direction. You can see something similar in people from cultures outside the European world who spend years working and living alongside Europeans but never really take to the European way of life. Rousseau and thinkers like him tend to read this as some kind of noble, admirable love of freedom, but that's not what's going on. It's something much more basic. The animal side of the person has simply never been shaped into anything more developed. The human potential is still there, but it hasn't been drawn out yet.
So the lesson is clear. A person has to be introduced to the rules of reason early while they're still young enough to absorb them. If they're given free rein and never pushed back against in their youth, they'll carry a kind of inner wildness with them for the rest of their lives. And being wrapped in cotton wool by an overly protective parent doesn't save them either. It just delays the reckoning. Because the world outside will not be nearly so gentle. And when it starts pushing back, it pushes back hard and from every direction at once.
A classic mistake in the upbringing of future rulers is that because they're destined to inherit power, nobody ever really stands up to them when they're young. The painful irony is that the people who will one day have the most power are exactly the ones who needed the most opposition growing up. Because human beings naturally resist being shaped and constrained, some friction and resistance in upbringing is necessary, unlike with animals, who are already shaped by their instincts from day one.
Human beings need both discipline and education. Education means training and building character. Very few animals need anything like this. Almost none of them actually learn anything from their parents, except birds when it comes to singing. The parents teach it, and it's genuinely sweet to watch. The mother bird belts out her song with everything she's got, and the chicks struggle to reproduce those same sounds with their tiny little throats. It's basically a music class. To prove this is actually learned rather than hardwired, you can try swapping some canary eggs for sparrow eggs, or switching very young sparrows for young canaries. If you then keep the young sparrows in a room where they can't hear other sparrows, they'll pick up the canary's song instead, and you end up with sparrows that sing like canaries. Culture beats biology, at least on this front. What's remarkable is that each bird species has managed to pass its song down faithfully through every single generation. The tradition of the song may be the most reliable transmission of anything in the natural world.